So, Tom Scott recently put a video on his lateral channel called Why Do Rubik's Cubers Nod Their Heads? And if you don't know what lateral is, it's where he gets like four panelists, one being himself, to discuss the answer to some weird question, some weird why question. And I never really expected cubing to be on there, and if it ever was, I didn't think it would be this one. But to be fair, to the outside eye, it is a pretty good question to ask.
Since 2019, competitive solvers of Rubik's Cube puzzles have been able to improve a record time by nodding their head. How?
So, I mean, if you don't know the answer to this, it has something to do with what I'm wearing on my forehead. It's something I've never actually done myself, but obviously I know enough cubers and I've watched enough cubing content to know exactly what the answer to this question is. And, yeah. I'm not good enough at the event in question for it to have a noticeable impact, but for many others, it does.
So I can chime in with a bit of knowledge on competitive Rubik's Cube solving here.
Are you a cuber, Tom? Is that
I'm
what you do on
not.
the weekends?
I don't have the patience for it. It requires learning like this set of rote skills and like algorithms that you can sort out in your head. And the same way that I enjoy like magic shows but have never been any good at doing it myself, it just requires like so much rote rehearsal and physical training that I just don't have the patience for it. But
It's one of those skills that is truly a 10,000 hour thing.
yeah, and I don't have enough gumption for Rubik's cubing.
You don't have 10,000 hours spare. I think that's also true.
I hesitated before saying the word gumption because I thought Adam was going to call me out on it. But but I can tell you about how they time it. To time a Rubik's Cube thing, they have an electronic mat and they have to put two hands down on the mat. They can examine the cube. They can take all the time they want to do that. Then when they're ready, they put the cube down, two hands down on the mat, and the time runs from when they lift their hands off the mat to when they have them both touching again, hopefully with the cube solved. Like that's the electronic timer. And it works like thousandths of a second. Like the world record is decided by incredibly precise timing. So
it's like 4 seconds, isn't it?
Yeah.
The world record. It's crazy.
So like a tiny optimization, I don't know why it would be nodding your head, but like a tiny change to how that works.
So think about it this way.
Now, it's funny here because when Tom Scott initially started his Tom Scott Plus channel and started looking for people to teach him skills or do stuff with him, I did actually submit a proposal through it to teach him how to solve a cube, and I never heard back from him. So maybe that's why. I mean, I'm sure it won't take that long. Michelle Carey did it with J-Perm at one point, so yeah. But it's interesting that he does have at least some knowledge of cubes. I'm not sure how some people would agree with the accuracy to the thousandth of a second, though. But in general, it is quite accurate.
So what if you're holding the Rubik's Cube, and if you're nodding, if you're bobbing, could you be changing your angle of view on each bob to where you like see the bottom of the Rubik's Cube, and that way you can be examining two sides in each stroke of your rocking, and that could make your decision smarter?
Now, for somebody that doesn't know how to solve a cube, that is an interesting idea, but it is completely wrong. Like, the top cubers have good enough look ahead that bobbing their head isn't really going to make them see anything. I mean, it was a whole controversy years ago with stickerless cubes allowing you to see a tiny bit of the back side, and that's why they didn't allow them for years, but it's absolute nonsense. And that's why stickerless cubes are now legal, as they should be.
Well, perhaps if the cube is down on the mat and you're bobbing your head forward, you could see some of the other sides of it before you start. So you might have a slight edge on what you need to do.
They get loads of time to examine it. By the time they start, the really, really good speed cubers won't have to look at the cube once they've started. It's all done and in their head.
Well, this isn't quite correct. They get 15 seconds inspection time, which most cubers don't quite use. You hardly ever have to call 12 as a judge. But yeah, for blindfolded, yes, they do memorise everything. But for blindfolded, the inspection is included in the total time. For normal 3x3, I don't think anybody's ever planned out a full official solve yet. I think it will happen at some point in the next few years on one very, very easy scramble, but it's never happened yet. Cubers plan out a long way. The top cubers, definitely. Ying Wang can probably plan out F2L a lot of the time, but not the whole cube. He still has to look sometimes.
More on that.
It kind of reminds me of the photo finish in a 100-meter race, right? Where they're just bobbing their head forward, and that can be the difference between a gold and silver medal.
Right. Yeah, they're slapping their head on this sensitive pad.
Is it a face palm? Kind of just a head slam.
No, there's only one nod, and it happens at the very start.
Oh.
Okay.
Well, only one nod of the execution portion of the blindfolded solve. Not in the inspection portion, which would take like 5 seconds for the top cubers, and then they nod their heads, and blindfolds on, solve it, 9 seconds, done. Stop the timer, 14 seconds, world record.
So it's at the very start, with like 2 hands down on the mat, or like where they're looking and thinking about it. But how would a head nod make a difference?
Well, you said something interesting earlier. You said they don't even have to look at it.
Huh.
Because this is for a very specific record.
Is it for cubers with vision impairments?
Not directly, no. Could be-
Blindfolded?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I guess they've finally worked it out. Although if your hands are on the time when you're doing your nod on, then it's a DNF.
So it's the record for blindfolded Rubik's cubing.
Yep.
How would nodding your head help you once?
Hold on. Okay.
Tom's there.
I'm there. I'm trying to figure out how to phrase it. I assumed that blindfold cubing would work like regular cubing. You get lots of time to examine the cube. You then bring your mask down, put your hands down, and solve it. But maybe the rules are different. Maybe in blindfold cubing, it includes the time it takes you to think about it. So the actions you have to do are like hands off the mat, reveal the cube, look all around the cube, put your mask down, and start solving. Now, if you wanted to speed that up and you nod your head just hard enough, the blindfold drops in front of your eyes, that would speed you up.
Oh, I was thinking about peeking out from beneath the blindfold when you
Cheating.
nodded.
And to be fair, congratulations to Tom Scott for figuring that out pretty quickly, to be fair. That's less than 5 minutes of whatever, probably a Zoom call this is. Yeah, he's figured it out. And yeah, of course, the rules aren't like speed blind, because otherwise people would spend hours working out an FMC solution to every blind solve and then executing it in 3 seconds, and it'll just waste loads of time. You have to include the memorization time, otherwise it's just silly.
But I think using the nod to have the
Yeah.
blindfold come down is better.
That is exactly it, because the timer starts
Wow.
when the hands come up, and they have to put the blindfold down first. And so the time
Wow.
for putting the blindfold
Yes.
down is included. So obviously somebody once spotted that it's much quicker to go whoop than to go like that. So now that is referred to apparently as the nod don.